Today I wanted to give you a quick little intro on how to do the lab, since the first lab is going to be activating in the class today. It's a little bit somewhat complicated the way you have to jump between a couple different sites that we're using to complete the labs, but once you do it once or twice you'll get the hang of it. It's not that big of a deal. First place you want to go is go into your lessons area on the My Courses site. So the lessons area right here, click on it. Look something like that. We'll look at this first lab, the cell transport mechanisms permeability. That's the first lab that we'll do this semester, but there's other ones: skeletal muscle, neurophysiology, endocrine. This little video, it applies to, or the screencast I should say, applies to any of these that we'll be working on this semester. So if you go into the lab here, this first one, you'll see a series of different components for the lab, different things that you need to complete as part of the lab, this cell transport lab. This first one tells you about some activities on mastering that I will show you here in just a second. We'll switch over to mastering in a minute and I'll show you how to do this part. But before that, what I would suggest is make sure you open this file, this PDF file, this cell lab instruction sheet, and do this for all of the labs that we do this semester. Click on that, download it to your computer, then open it up. It'll look something like this. I already had it downloaded to my computer. It'll look something like this, right? It's just a PDF of, if you were to buy the hard copy of the Physio X9 lab manual, this is what would be in the hard copy. I suggest printing this out, because as you're working through the lab activities that I'll show you in a minute on mastering, this gives you a place to write down your data, answer questions, make notes, whatever you need to do, because that becomes important when you go to do the lab review sheet and the lab quiz. So it's much easier to have a nice printed copy sitting on your desk while you're going through the activity. You can refer back easily to stuff. It's just a lot better than the way it's set up in mastering, and I'll show you that more in a second. Okay, so anyway, so have that ready to go, get that printed out, and then eventually you'll do a lab review sheet again on mastering, and then a cell lab quiz, and that again is on mastering. I'll show you that. So if we switch over to mastering, you'll see that due next Wednesday by 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time are a series of lab activities and then the lab review sheet. You can also access these. So this is from the home page of mastering. You can see it on the calendar there when they're due. Or you can go to the assignments area, and there'll be a list of assignments there that'll show you the due dates and times and all that. Some of you have maybe already done these intro assignments, these first couple of homeworks that are due this week as well. Anyway, so let's jump to this first one. You'll see a series here, these lab activities. You can see the category is labs. This first one, 1.1 through 1.5, this first PhysioX lab that we do has 5 parts to it, or 5 activities, I should say. Each one, 1.1, you've got to do all of these. They're all different. They're all looking at different things having to do with cell membrane transport physiology. So if we click on this first one, just to show you what these look like, click on that, open it up. Let me get to the student view real quick, just so it looks like what you guys will be seeing. Looks something like this. You'll see a lab part 1, lab part 2. You'll see that for each of the lab activities, 1.1, 1.2, etc. What you'll do, the first thing you'll do is click on lab part 1, open that up. You'll see a couple things here. On the right, you'll see a short series of 3 or 4 questions. And then on the left here, you'll see a small little window with a little picture of the equipment that you're going to be using, and I'll show you that in a second. I got a reminder to do something. This first part, the thing to keep in mind, this is like a little pre-lab quiz. These questions over here, and that it says it right there. This lab part 1 is a pre-lab quiz. These are not graded for whether you get them right or wrong. You just need to make sure you do them. So make sure you're doing these and learning from them. They're going to be teaching you some of the different concepts and things that the lab is being used for. So make sure you're doing these different little questions over here on the pre-lab quiz. Now, once you're ready to start doing the actual lab activity, click on this. It'll open another window. I know it opens all kinds of different windows. And it'll open up, it'll look like this. Why it jumps to the objectives first, I'm not sure. I don't know why it doesn't jump to the overview first, but whatever, that's just the way they designed it. So go to the overview, read through the lab, the exercise overview. There's a couple pages here, so read through that, make sure you understand this. A lot of this material is the same stuff that we're doing in chapter 3 of the text with cell physiology. So it's if you've read that and been working on that, some of this will be review. If not, it'll be new, obviously. There's the objectives. Here's the objectives once they come back up. Sometimes this takes a minute for some reason. I think I have too many windows open on my computer or something. There they are. They're the objectives. These are telling you what you're going to be working on in this lab and what you're going to be learning. Then you get to the introduction. Again, do some more reading, a couple short pages of material here that you should be reading and kind of get a basic idea of what's going on in the experiment. The other thing to keep in mind, is that all this reading, all this text that's in here that you'll be looking at is the same stuff that's in here. It's the same stuff. Exercise overview. Here's the introduction. There's the objectives. It's the same as that PDF I told you to print out and have on your desk. So read it online or read it on the printed version, whatever you prefer. Then you're ready to actually do the experiment. Click on the experiment tab. You get over here. Here's the simulated lab equipment you're going to be using. A couple beakers, some dialysis membranes over here. You'll see instructions will pop up over here of what you need to do. The first thing tells you to drag this 20 molecular weight cutoff membrane over between the beakers. Once you do that, hit next. It tells you to do some other stuff. As you go through the lab, you'll be collecting data. It'll tell you to record your data. It'll record the data down here in this box. So you just basically follow the instructions, collect all your data, answer questions as you go, just the normal kind of lab type experiment activity. Once you're done, you'll click over onto lab report. I'm not going to do that because it'll give weird messages right now because I didn't do the whole experiment. But once you're done, make sure you go to the lab report area. You'll save your work as a PDF file, as they call it a lab report, but it shows all your answers to the questions, all your data, all that kind of stuff. Save that PDF file, especially if you have not printed this out and are keeping your notes and data on this. If you don't save that lab report, you will lose all your data and you will have to redo this exercise 1 again. So it doesn't save. There's nowhere that this data is saved. If you don't write it down or save that PDF file at the end of each activity, your data is lost and you have to start over. So just keep that in mind. All right, so once you get that done, then we can close that out. Go back over to this window, go back to this list. Now you do lab part 2. Basically all lab part 2 is just a post-lab quiz. You essentially are going to answer these questions. Again, there's 3 or 4 questions post-lab. You're not graded on it. It's just you're graded on completion, not whether you get them right or wrong. Again, use these to learn from. You don't have to open this again, because if you do, it's just going to pull up exactly what you just finished and you'll be starting over again because all your data's gone. So again, you can get to the lab activity, the actual simulation from lab part 2 if you want to. So whichever one you want to use, either you've got to do both lab part 1 and lab part 2 because one's a pre-lab quiz, one's a post-lab quiz, but you can get to the lab simulations from either one. All right, so once you get that done, and let's go back over here. So you got 1.1 done. You then go and do the same thing again for 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5. Do all the different parts, all the different activities. Do the lab part 1 and 2 in each of them. You'll have a whole bunch of data. You'll have, if you're saving PDF files as those lab reports, you'll have 5 different PDF files, or you're writing it all down on that lab instruction sheet, whichever you prefer. Okay, once you got that all done, now you do the cell lab review sheet. Click on that, it'll open up. let me show you the student view. Looks something like this. It's telling you that there's 25 points. This is a graded assignment that you need to turn in before the due date and time on mastering. It'll give you a series of questions randomly pulled from a question pool. You answer the questions best as you can. One thing to note with mastering, do not hit this submit button until you are sure of your answer, because once you submit that answer to that question, you can't get it back. There's no way to get it back in mastering. If you're not sure of an answer, you can always just skip it. You can skip, I don't want to do question 1 right now. I'm going to go and try question number 2. You can also jump back up here. You can jump back to the list and say, I want to do question 7 first. And you'll go over here and do question 7 instead. As you complete questions, they'll gray out. They'll kind of gray out, and they'll tell you, well, right here it says incomplete. Once you complete question 1, it'll say complete, etc. So you can know, which questions you have and haven't completed. And that goes for any assignment in mastering, not just these lab ones. So anyways, so that's how you do the review sheet. Make sure that gets in before the due date and time. The quizzes. The last thing you have to do for each of the labs we do this semester is a lab quiz. It's going to check for data points, whether you understood the lab, how the lab was set up, things like that. You'll see there's 2 lab quizzes here, first and second. Basically, you get 2 attempts on the lab quizzes. In case there's some computer problem or something with your first attempt, you have a second attempt. When I record the grades in the My Courses gradebook, I pull the highest score. So there's no penalty for doing both of them. Go ahead and do both attempts. I'll pull the highest score. But these are timed. Keep in mind that the lab quizzes are timed. You have 10 minutes and 10 questions, so you got to work quick. And that's why I said it's best to have a printed version of all your lab notes and everything right there with you. Don't be relying on opening computer files or something. Have a printed version of all your lab notes with you when you go to take those quizzes. And again, take the first one, see how you do. If you like your score, don't do the second one. Or take the first one. If you don't like your score, do the second one. It doesn't matter. I'm going to pull the highest score. Now, one thing that always comes up is if something messes up and one of these attempts messes up, I'm not going to go in and reset unless there was a system-wide error that affected everybody in the class. If your computer messed up on the first attempt, you still have a second attempt. If both attempts mess up, then you have a problem with your computer that needs to be resolved, because mastering is a very stable system. There are not very many errors that occur in this system. And so just keep that in mind. The reason, if there were never any computer errors, everybody would have 1 attempt on the quizzes. But because there are sometimes computer errors, I give 2 attempts on the quizzes just in case. So that's about it. Just hopefully that helps you understand how you'll be doing the labs this semester. And again, you'll do the same thing when you get to the skeletal system or muscle physiology one. You'll do the same thing, neurophys, endocrine, all the different labs we do this semester. You'll follow the same kind of format. Oh, there's an email. All right, hopefully that helps you. What happened?